All right, welcome back to the program. Johnson Chukwu is the Group Managing Director at Cowry Asset Management Limited. He pleasantly joins me here in the studio. Quite a surprise. He was supposed to join us virtually. He just, surprised me. What a Monday surprise. Mr. Chief Chukwu, not Mr. Chukwu. Chief Chukwu, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I do, like we say in Nigerian Palace.
Oh, we all day with a look. Like they say, sit down, look na dog name.
Now so we see more.
No be small thing. Now, let's start this discussion. A myriad of economic challenges. I reeled a few out before the break. Speak to me about what concerns you majorly right now, because it seems I wouldn't say I'm tired already of speaking, because we've been on this issue for many years. You see, some things will slightly change. It's like we've gone back, quite a whole lot of things happening. But speak to me. I really want to get your heart on perhaps the most challenge that we have right now in our economy. Then we can
Nancy,
take it from there.
we have multiple challenges, like you rightly pointed out. But the greatest one, or the one of greatest concern, should be the exchange rate. The simple thing is that a lot of things will be influenced or are determined by the exchange rate. You have to do with your inflation rate, you have to do with cost of living, you have to do with standard of living, you have to deal with the level of employment, level of productivity. So many things are intertwined in that exchange rate conundrum. And for me, we need to deal with the issue of exchange rate. If we don't deal with the issue of exchange rate, a lot of things will give in. You've already seen the impact of the exchange rate depreciation on this issue of subsidy. We've all admitted, confessed that subsidy has come back. So why did subsidy come back? It's not just because crude prices moved up and ICE moved up. Most importantly, because exchange rate devalued further. So if exchange did not devalue further, we would have been talking of about maybe 20%, 25% increase in ICE and therefore pump price. But now, if you add the impact of the exchange rate depreciation, you've got to a point where the government can no longer afford to pass on that cost to the citizens, and therefore we're back to subsidy payment. Then if you look at the issue of inflation, we ended with inflation rate of 25.8%. Even with all sense of concern that that figure may still not be fully representative of the current consumer prices. But even if you use that, you also consider the fact that there's a lot of that pressure, apart from the food inflation pressure, is coming from exchange rate depreciation, the pass-through effect of exchange rate depreciation. You talk of manufacturing. Manufacturers are not able to access foreign exchange, and therefore they are not able to produce. So you're also going to see a slowdown in productive activities. Then you talk of consumption. Most average households can no longer afford the basic consumer goods that they normally used to afford, because the pass-through effect of the landing cost of products at new exchange rate is impacting negatively on the consumer, on the disposable income of average consumers or the purchasing power of the consumers. Then you talk of the social fabrics of the society. Many Nigerian families have their children schooling outside the country. Some of them are in year 1, year 2, year 3. Are you going to bring all them back? Because some of them, the parents can no longer afford to cater for their financial needs. Then even if you look at the local educational system, the universities are increasing fees. And part of that increase is because the cost of living has gone up. And therefore, the lecturers will agitate for higher pay. So you're going to see a situation where even people in decent jobs can no longer even afford the basic needs of vehicles and other bases of life. So if we don't deal with this exchange rate issue, a lot of things can give in.
What are your recommendations? How do we deal with these exchange rate issues? Because Nigeria's FX premium is among the highest in the world. You're taking a look at what is trading official. We've been told to call it the Nigerian Foreign Exchange Market. I know I specifically asked Mr. Shonubi at the last MPC meeting questions around this exchange rate, and we saw even what he came out to speak, tell us even after meeting the president several times that FX speculators should beware, yet we have not seen anything yet. We saw that the FX distortions really gave us, very sadly, gave us price discovery in the marketplace, multiple FX windows, and also showed us institutional weakness, as it were, even on the path of the monetary authority that is supposed to manage exchange rate stability. So what are your recommendations? Because it seems to me that are we lost for creative ideas, or are the tools finished to manage exchange rates, which is one of the primary goals of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now we have a new man there acting.
Okay, Nancy, the issues around the exchange rate has been badly mismanaged. And let me tell you, let me give you an analogy. You know, you could have a sore, an injury that leads to a sore, and then the sore is badly managed. It begins to expand, and then you continue to manage it badly, and you continue to pretend there's no issue, and you continue to say, I just have a little thing, I bandage it. It gets infected. When it gets infected, what happens next? The doctors will tell you, we have to amputate this limb, or you die with it. It started with maybe a small injury. So what we're dealing with is a situation where we have consistently mismanaged the exchange rate. Some of us have actually come out to say, look, before you harmonize the exchange rate, there were certain things needed to have been done. And those things would have been done much easier than they will be done today.
Like what? Like what? Because people like you also called for harmonization.
Yes, I've actually
of the FX
consistently
markets.
called for harmonization of exchange rate and removal of subsidy. But the issue is that
it be like say now all this economic analysis.
No.
Put us for you
Nancy, you know, I have also said in one of the public forum that the way they have managed it have made us look like liars. They say you had put a lie on everything we have advocated. And I have used an analogy again that, look, if somebody said is on a rooftop and says, look, I will jump and die. And you say to the person, please don't jump. You send somebody to go and bring the person down. So the person climbs through the stairways and gets to the rooftop. You ask him to bring him down, he pushes him. To bring him down, his own understanding of bringing him down is to take him down. He pushes the guy. The guy falls from there and dies. And then you say, look, but I said he should bring him down. He said, I have brought him down. So...
Well, you know, those of you that are economists are very smart in terms of...
No, it's not a matter of smartness, but the reality is this.
In terms of explaining things for us to agree.
When we say certain things, every economic variable has multiple consequences.
Yes.
So before you touch any, you should understand the consequences. If I were the one to harmonize the exchange rate, the first thing I would have done, Nancy, is that I would have taken stock of the arrears of unmade demand. Those areas of unmade demand were in three broad categories. You have mature letters of credit that have not been negotiated. So the foreign suppliers are desperately in need of their money. The local suppliers have sold those goods in Naira, had the money with their banks, and they have asked their banks to keep bidding for them. So I would have taken stock of that. Two, I would have taken stock of foreign portfolio demands in terms of remittances related to sale of Naira assets, dividend repatriations, and similar other payments due to foreign portfolio investors. Three, I would have taken, I would assess the amount outstanding to the foreign airlines. These are sub points you need to take care of. So I would have made sure that if it's 10 billion or whatever it is, I would have looked for funding for that 10 billion. And yes, I'm coming there.
Does not print dollar.
Yes. What are those funds? What are the funding?
NNPC gives the central bank,
yes.
And NNPC has been faulting on that for almost 2 years, or if not more than that. Now, with the subsidy that is back, NNPC will have every excuse now not to even give CBN money. And if we're talking, hold on, Mr. Chukwu, I just want to follow up on some of this your analysis so that I don't forget. Unmet demand, does the central bank still have the firepower to give us that backlog, like we saw during? Is it the Soludo days now? Who was president at that time? President Obasanjo, isn't it? Then we had a firepower of about $60 billion. If they do anything like this, Soludo will just put money, you know. Now, let's see who will fall first. But now, it's not there. Even though the central bank will say, the IFX reserve about $33 billion. We saw what, is it JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs said some weeks ago, which I also took an official of the central bank here. So put all of this into context.
No, let's get where we're going to first. And that is how would central bank would have funded it. That's why we're asking what should have been done or what should be done. So we'll come back to the aspect of your question. So what should have been done is that you have assessed the need, the compelling need. It has to be met. Before you harmonize the exchange rate, it has to be met. If you don't meet it, the implication that you're going to create panic in the entire
That's
system.
why I asked the question. How would they meet it
I'm
now,
coming.
Mr. Chukwu?
Now, I'll give you several scenarios. One scenario is that IMF and World Bank has been prodding the federal government of Nigeria to harmonize the exchange rate and remove subsidy. And they touted this as possible conditions to support the fiscal authorities. If you had gone to them, to the IMF and World Bank, and said, look, we are ready to take up some of your conditionalities, but we need funding from you. We are going to restructure the economy, make the economy open. We're going to remove the leakages in the economy and the weaknesses, which include subsidy on petroleum products and the multiple exchange rate. The IMF will gladly have granted you accommodation. Given the size of our economy, given our foreign exchange earning potentials, you could have gone to the IMF for a $20 billion line.
Will they be able to give us that?
Issue that
it's only if you gave us an SDR of 3.5 billion about
if you had
2-3 years ago.
The key thing you are going to
which was the highest at that time in Africa.
Yes, we are not talking about SDR this time.
Yes, I know.
You remember at this instance you are going to an institution that has been prodding you
to take reforms.
And these are the key reforms. And you are saying, I need your support to take the reforms. There was a high probability that would have gotten the IMF and World Bank to support us. And that would have been a surest way. And let me tell you what would have happened. If we had, at the point of harmonization, cleared arrears, what would have happened that the foreign portfolio would have lost their shit. They will go out, but they will say there's liquidity in the Nigerian foreign exchange market. And once they say there's liquidity in the foreign exchange market, the people who are front-loading their demand will slow down, reverse it. Supply will come to the market by those who are holding back stock of USD because they think the government, the central bank has a way with her to strengthen the Naira. So, and it's what you call, because it's all about confidence. Confidence will automatically be engendered because they would have cleared arrears. And if you clear arrears, it then means that you have capacity. Even if the capacity is illusion. And then, for those who are holding dollar, they will say, okay, the government is supplying, the central bank is supplying the market. Let me not allow my dollar to further lose value, so let me sell. And for foreign portfolio investors that are leaving, that had got their share, but they will leave. And they tell their colleagues at every different investment forum that, look, while Nigeria still bought good return opportunities, I got there, I got burnt because I went in at the wrong time. But the good thing about the market is that there is a new kid on the block. We have a harmonized exchange rate, so there's liquidity in the market. I lost 30% of my investment. But if you go back to the Nigerian market today, you're likely going to make money.
Now, would you still say that that will be a unified exchange rate or that will still be managed float? Because with your own analysis now, what I'm getting is that the central bank will continue to manage float that foreign exchange market. So it's not willing buyer, willing seller, like we see in other climes where the central bank doesn't even know what happens naturally day to day concerning the foreign exchange market. You understand what I'm saying?
I'll come to that. In the first place,
you know to balance.
No, see, Nancy, willing buyer, willing seller, and manage rates.
They're not the same thing.
They are not contradictory. There is no society in the world, not a single place in the world, that the central bank does not play a role in stabilizing the exchange when there is wide gyration.
When there is crisis.
Yeah, when there is wide gyration. The Federal Reserve Bank sits there, watches the dollar exchange rate, and monitor that, make sure that dollar does not strengthen too much as to make U.S. export expensive, or weaken too much as to lower the standard of living of Americans. And it intervenes in ways that are very subtle, so that the exchange rate remains within a particular range. The U.S. was crying itself hawks that the Chinese central bank was managing the Chinese yuan to a level that was too weak to support export. There's no country central bank that does not intervene. And that's why they're the central bank. That's why they keep the reserve, the national reserve of the country. So the issue about managed exchange rate is that a central bank would have been there to intervene as a lender of last resort whenever the need arises. But that does not take away the fact on a daily basis, the cacophony of voices in the market, what volume are you offering? This is my offer rate, this is my bid rate, and then trade is going on when the trade is, demand and supply mirror themselves. But once there's a dislocation, the central bank will weigh in to stabilize the exchange rate. So that's why I say they are not mutually excluded. They are not actually parallel things. So when we said we have harmonized the exchange rate, it then means that the difference between the market segment, because there would have still be market segment, cash would have been slightly different from transfer. The difference will be inconsequential because there's an arbitrage. And that arbitrage comes like, okay, if the transfer rate is much higher than the cash rate, somebody will lodge money into his account and make a transfer. And then you'll see some level of equilibrium will achieve. So you don't see that kind of widespread, wide premium that exists between the official rate. And the central bank is not helping matters. So while parallel market has gotten to 1,000 naira, the central bank on Friday was actually revaluing the naira from 770 to 747 naira to $1. So what's the justification? Is it that on that I and E window, or whatever window we decide to call it, there is more supply? So if there's more supply, why don't we use it to stabilize the other market?
Which the other market now? The parallel market.
Yeah, the parallel market.
That's using legal to legal way to supply illegal.
You see, when you talk of there's nothing illegal about the parallel market.
There's nothing.
There's nothing illegal about the parallel market. Somebody wants to pay children's school fees. He goes to the central bank, goes to his local bank. He can't get it. There's somebody who is there selling dollar to him. He buys it. He says he has bought something illegal. Illegal means criminality. There's no criminality about this.
But the central bank does not recognize that. And it's always maintained that that is a very small piece
if they think it's illegal, let them start prosecuting those who are doing it. Once you terminate
they
illegal,
do sometimes.
it's a criminal offense.
It's not even them that prosecute. The security officials sometimes do.
Nancy, if you give me $1 million, let me go and get $1,000 now.
You will get it.
I will take my commission.
Okay.
Anyway.
I think let's just quickly take a break, and when we return, we'll continue the conversation with Mr. Johnson Chukwu. Of course, burning economic issues, so many things to talk about. Which one will go take? Which one will go leave? But let's see what we can do for the next few minutes. Do join us again. Don't forget to connect with us on all our socials. We'll be right back.
I need something we go ginger me. We tom I dey breathe for it now. I dey run kilometers. That's why I dey come.
All right, welcome back. Johnson Chukwu, the Group Managing Director at Cowry Asset Management, is still with me here. We talked about FX rates, before the break. Let's move over to Cardoso and the acting deputies. They assumed their positions last Friday. The Central Bank of Nigeria sent us the notices and all of that. Do you see anything wrong in that? And if we have the CBN Act, I had to read it again. At least in the last 1 month or so, I've been going to and fro within that CBN Act. Do you think that for Mr. Cardoso to have resumed office with his deputies, I know that they are there now, without Senate confirmation, do you think it's right? Can we put that CBN portion of the CBN Act on air? Yes. Because it said even in the CBN Act, subject to confirmation of the Senate. And this is the first time this kind of thing is really happening. I can't remember something like that because even in the last administration, Sarah Alade was acting. When Emefiele was confirmed, Sarah Alade handed over to Emefiele. The same with, Sanusi Lamido, President Jonathan suspended Sanusi Lamido. The same for Soludo. So this is actually a bit strange to me. What do you think?
Okay, you have to recognize the concept of acting. Acting, somebody who's in an acting position is who is in a holding position. It does not confer on you the full mandate or the full authority of that office. So if you are in a holding position, anybody can be in a holding position. It could have been an internal person, it could have been an external person. So I don't think it will breach any law if somebody is called to act in the state of a substantive office holder. That is based on what I know about law, that if you are called to act in the place of a substantive office holder, it doesn't mean, it wouldn't amount to any breach. It's only if you are now in that capacity without going through the process of being in that capacity. So in the case of the Central Bank board, they require the approval of the Senate to be substantive. So if you even decide to have called a director, the acting governor of Central Bank, it wouldn't breach any law. If we had decided to bring you Nancy to act, it wouldn't breach any law. So it's only if they had made you substantive without the approval of the Senate. So it's funny because you can use that acting window to bring in somebody to do a job that the person may not be qualified to. I'm not in this instance referring to Central Bank, but I'm just saying that that window of acting, which is a standing position, creates an opportunity for an institution to ensure there is continuity. That in the event of the unavailability of the office holder, that there is no lacuna. And that's why that window is created. But it wouldn't breach any law because anybody could have. The person who is called to act does not necessarily need to be qualified to occupy that position. But the substantive person must be qualified to occupy that position. And that qualification, in the case of the Central Bank directors, includes the approval of the Senate.
Okay. Now let's move to another issue. Now we have Cardoso and his deputies, they have resumed office. How do you think that these people should address the issue which we've raised earlier, FX instability as well as inflation? Okay, we've talked about FX anyway, but inflation is another hydra-headed problem. We were supposed to have MPC meetings today and tomorrow from the central bank, but perhaps they know what was going to happen. I don't know why central bank, you people, they're always coming up with, or is it government? They're always coming up with this kind of issues on Friday evening, when everybody knows that we are going on for the weekend. Before Monday, everything will die down. We dey still now. We know what still now they do. So what do you think in the context of all of that? Do you see, of course, they said MPC will soon be done, a new date will be communicated to us. What do you expect? Well, do you think that Cardoso and his team will surprise us and bring down interest rates to cut the market, to cut people like you?
Nancy, they have an unenviable job. The country's economy is in very bad shape. Too many variables are going in the wrong direction. There is a very high limitation to what the Monetary Policy Committee members or the monetary authorities can do in this instance. You talked about the inflation rate. The inflation rate is not driven by excess. It's partly driven by excess liquidity injected by ways and means of central bank funding the federal government. But that's one. The other aspect of it are the pass-through effect of Naira depreciation. The third leg of it is the insecurity in the major food belts of the country. These three components cannot be effectively addressed by monetary tools. Maybe one of them is the issue of high power money, ways and means funding of the federal government. But I think even with the higher exchange rate, I don't think the federal government will have a compelling need to go cap in hand to the central bank. And also given that they just securitized in 2.7 trillion. So I don't think that would be a problem. But the problem would be that for every change in exchange rate between Naira and dollar, the landing cost of imported goods increases. So that is also implies that you have a higher rate of inflation or import-induced inflation. Then we're dealing with a demand, a supply limitations, particularly when it comes to agricultural produce. So if you are not able to produce enough goods, enough food items, and then the price of food, because you don't have enough supply, keep increasing, what happens that the impact of that is higher rate of inflation.
Okay.
And there's nothing the monetary authorities will do as it relates to food production other than the fiscal authority addressing the issue of insecurity. The issue around exchange rate stabilization will come from improvement in crude production, because that's the only short window that we have, or what we call short-term measure that we can that is within our control. Because if to say we are producing 2.1 million barrels today, we will with that deal with whatever has been sold forward, and they still have some free crude that will be sold and foreign currency will be generated. It will not be the duty of the monetary authorities to fight insecurity in the Niger Delta to ensure that crude production increases. So I think we are going to be in a very difficult situation. And I don't see any magic wand they can come up with.
Do you think that Cardoso would bring back confidence to the institution? Because central bank in the past, at least in the last 1 year, has suffered confidence, especially from the people around. Of course, that crisis of confidence was exacerbated as a result of Naira redesign. You know, a lot of people did not just have it. So from then on, we saw a nosedive of confidence with the monetary authority. Do you think that Cardoso and his team will bring it back? How do you think they should approach that?
Well, you know, Nancy, when we talk of confidence, is it in the central bank or confidence in the monetary policy or confidence in the economy? These things are maybe confidence in the economy is with the universal
confidence in the central bank and confidence in handling of monetary policy.
Okay.
Yes, confidence in the central bank as an institution.
Okay,
because it seems that all eyes are on the central bank now. You know, in terms of, oh, how do they do? All eyes on them. Oh, no, you guys have done this, you guys have done that. Without also looking at the fact that fiscal policy failed in the last 8 years.
Okay. let me tell you one of the definitions I give to people. That confidence is a product of competence. And that simply means that you are able to do the thing very effectively in a very productive manner. And that you are able to do what you say you will do. That's where confidence comes from. And so there's no point hazarding a guess whether confidence will come. The test of the pudding is the eating.
So the confidence will come from when Cardoso, let's see what they will do.
Okay. When they do the right things.
Then it would, confidence is naturally like trust.
Yes, it's not a matter of I'm the strongest person, I'm the wisest person. You just have to do it so that we see the doing, like they say.
Yes. Okay, let's, as we come to the end, we have just 2 minutes to go. Labour is threatening fire and brimstone. And you mentioned earlier, full subsidy is back. You know, when Ajuri Ngelale announced that, was it 2 months ago, so that there's a cap? I said it here on the show immediately. I said, is this not subsidy through the back door? And you're like, no, you know, the government can. Now, this is where we are. And you see that the FX premium is even widening now. And now, all prices about 95 US dollars. That means that there's a pass-through effect, higher pass-through effect in all of that. Where do you see all of this? Fuel subsidy back, Labour is threatening fire that this whole nation will come down. And perhaps rightfully so, because minimum wage is still at 30,000 naira. President said, fuel subsidy is gone. Fuel subsidy is gone. You didn't give us an impact reduction plan and all of that.
You know, Nancy, I said that the economy is going through a lot of difficulties.
We're going through a lot.
So I sympathize with Labour. They should also sympathize with me because I'm also going through,
We are going through a lot. Too.
So
Everybody's going through a lot.
The reality is that the positive policies that have been so far taken, we are taking wrongly. And that's the impact of what we're grappling with. We need to retrace our steps and look at what went wrong. I was talking to you about the issue of FS harmonization, the issue of removal of subsidy, which is one of the things that is hurting labor. If you go back and consider the fact that, look, the issue of removal of subsidy was on the table for quite some time. There were elaborate policies put in place that should have preceded the removal of subsidy. One of which is our public transport system. They were supposed to have brought in 20 buses per state capital to at least to ply the routes of the most vulnerable, where you have the large densely populated places. There were plans to convert, to set up conversion facilities to convert vehicles from fuel to gas. There were several measures that were supposed to have been put in place. None of them was put in place before the subsidy was removed. The reason why in places like other advanced countries, people even survive when prices are going up, because there are two critical things that humanity crave for. One is food, two is transport. Of course, the third one could be housing or accommodation, and then clothing. These are basic human needs. So if we have taken care of food and transportation, labor wouldn't be in this kind of situation where they are saying we'll go on strike. Unfortunately for labor, they don't seem to even have the gravity to propel anything.
Do you think the organized private sector will support? For you, there is a GMD of an organization. If they go on strike, shut down the economy, will your staff be coming to work? Because they're private sector. Nancy,
there's no way the private sector is hurting and hurting badly. There's no way private sector will support further dismantling of the economy. Like I said, the economy has gone through very difficult, it's going through a very difficult phase. So if you now shut down the economy and tell people to stay at home, where would the private sector get the money to pay the whatever is left? It's a very difficult situation.
It's a very difficult situation. It's a chicken and egg situation.
Yes.
Actually. All right. I think we have to go, Mr. Chukwu. Thank you very much for coming on today's edition of the program. I've been chatting with Economic Chat, if you say so, with Johnson Chukwu, who is the Group Managing Director at Cowry Asset Management Limited. That's the much we can take. Thank you all for joining us again today. I am Nancy Naji. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see. Mr. President, welcome back. The issues are on your table, so begin to address them now. Bye now.